Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning the second here. And yes, I do have a lemon drop in my mouth. I'll go ahead and say that up front because my throat's a little scratchy and I don't want to go into a hacking fit because my co-host today, my guest, Joe George, would not like that. And so yeah, if you see candy fall out of my mouth, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. Joe George, our guest today, right here on Meet Me at the Movies. Joe is a North Carolina film critics, a member of the General Governing Board. I don't really know what to call us sometimes. The Executive Committee, the Governing Board, we're all of that. So
evil overlords is what I prefer.
Yeah, exactly. and so that all that to say is Joe is a bigwig. Joe is a bigwig. He's an author and he's just a general cool dude. And Joe, you've got a lot of outlets that you participate in from a writing standpoint, from a standpoint of just providing your expertise and your thoughts. What's the best way people can find those?
I am at Joe Writes Words at all the socials, I think. I'm sure there's been a new one that's jumped up in the past 5 minutes that I haven't gotten on, but all of the ones that most people use, just look Joe Writes Words. That's where you can find me, and I'm constantly posting things that I write there.
Yeah, and just so you know, Joe's kind of role with the MC Film Critics, Joe handles all of the social media aspects and gets the word out there about what all of our incredible members are involved in. And so, Joe, thanks for your work because that is a lot of work that you do to spread the word and spread the love of our organization. So thanks for doing that.
Oh, it's fun.
So Joe, I follow your work and something caught my eye not too long ago with something you wrote for Wealth of Geeks, and it was focusing on silent films. And I've always thought that more people need to go back to where we came from to appreciate where we are now. And the piece that you wrote was called "These Standout Silent Movies Defined Cinema's Earliest Years." And I said, man, that would be a great topic for Meet Me at the Movies to kind of talk about that and talk about some of these films, but also talk about the incredible impact that silent films continue to have. And if I just look the past couple of decades, there are elements of silent films that, of course, show up in physical comedy, but when I think about the movie Up from 2009, that life montage, that was really, it was silent film with music, of course, but the action was silent. The Artist, of course, the big winner from 2011, which was a silent film. And then A Quiet Place that utilized silence to tell the story as well. So it's not dead by any means. So anyone who thinks it is, it's not dead. So what are your thoughts on silent film? Why are they so important to go back and study where we came from, and why are they still important?
I mean, the basic reason is that they're good and fun. I mean, there's sometimes we can get caught up in describing these things as if it's homework or an assignment or like your duty as a proper cinephile to go back and, acknowledge the history. And it is not to eat your vegetables at all. You got to remember that most of these, especially early on, were intended, they were kind of lowbrow art form. They were initially kind of used as part of vaudeville acts and magicians acts. And so they were intended to be extremely accessible. And even the ones that get more complicated and complex, sure, there's sometimes a difference in the acting style. It's a little bit more mannered. Sure, you may not initially be used to reading intertitles instead of getting the dialogue. But honestly, that's a very small bump to get onto the good stuff. And there is so much good stuff that is so accessible and easy to get to. So more than anything else, I just want people to know these are a lot of fun to watch. So you should watch them.
Awesome. Well, I think anyone who has been involved in any aspect of cinema knows the name Charlie Chaplin. So that's one name that everyone knows. And Chaplin was truly, in my opinion, a genius on a lot of levels. He was a writer. He was an actor. He was a producer. He was a composer, director. He was one of these that talk about multi-hyphenate. He was a true multi-hyphenate. And I think there's you do have a Chaplin film on your list that you think is essential for everyone to check out.
Yeah, modern times. You can't really go wrong with any of Chaplin's stuff up until kind of probably after Great Dictator. He gets um, a little bit too sappy for me, I'll say. um,
Okay.
but you can't go wrong with any of that earlier stuff, especially modern times, which has this sort of progressive era spirit that I think really resonates today. You know, that tramp character is such an iconic, and what's the word I'm looking for? He's an archetype for
Yeah.
anybody who feels that society is sort of leaving them behind. And that sounds really heavy, and it can be, but when you're watching it, there's such grace and humor to the way that he plays the tramp, even when the tramp is getting caught up in the gears of a giant machine, which is something that happens in modern times. Um,
Right.
he's we laugh with him because we recognize him and we appreciate. It's almost like a superhero sort of feeling. We wish that we could have that much grace under these sort of extraordinary circumstances. Yeah.
And over my shoulder, I've got a kind of an homage to that particular film with the gears. You can see
Yeah.
right there as well. So, yeah, I'm a fan of Chaplin on a lot of different levels, and I mentioned some of those reasons why. And talk about the tramp. Yeah, there was just yeah, he iconic. I mean,
Hmm.
iconic is truly the word. And any even though those who may not know Chaplin, if they see a certain hat, a little mustache, and some eyebrows that aren't as big as the Groucho's, they will say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's something relating to cinema." And then
Hmm.
when you're like Chaplin, oh yeah, okay, Chaplin.
Hmm.
So talk about from a marketing standpoint, the longevity of that image, that an iconic image
Yeah.
that still carries today, is pretty phenomenal.
And Chaplin, you know, I'm sure you know this, was so devoted to silent cinema as an art form that he continued doing it successfully well after the other studios had transitioned to sound. He understood that you can communicate so much just with a look and a stage and the
Yeah,
way that he moves his body.
yeah.
There's a purity to his performances I admire the way that he kept through them.
Yeah, and in some of his films, the messages that he was able to convey through the story, and as you
Yeah.
mentioned, through just his facial expressions. Um, I I think back to The Kid and just the
Yeah.
power
Yep.
of that film, and I got to see that in a theater with a live orchestra,
Mm.
and it was just amazing to kind of get that sense. And it was using his original compositions, and
Yeah.
to see it in that way, and to flash back to how early cinema got a chance to experience it, was just phenomenal. What
Yeah.
else? What else have you got on your list that you want to make sure we cover in this first half of the show?
Well, I love Chaplin too, but there's this sort of artificial divide when it comes to the big comedians, and I fall a little bit more on the Buster Keaton side. Buster Keaton's kind of having a moment right now, and I think a well earned one. And I recommend. So when I wrote my article, I kind of took the position of introducing silent film to people who are maybe scared of it and don't know much about it. And I think Steamboat Bill Jr. From 1928 is the way to start. Uh, Again, you kind of like Chaplin, you can't go wrong with any Keaton. He has a sort of elemental, fundamental screen presence in that, he's got this the stone face, as they talk about, this
Right.
unmoving, sad face with this flat hat that he wears. That he continues, well, all of these things go wrong around him, and the standout sequence of Steamboat Bill, I'm sure many people have seen it, is where he's trying to build a house in a hurricane, and the facade of the house falls down around him. And I like to start with that, because if you
Yeah.
were to see that stunt today, 9 times out of 10, you'd be like, I know how they did that. There's wires on there that they CG'd out, or that facade wasn't actually there. In 1928, you're like, how did they do that? And
Yes.
the answer is, it's an actual facade falling around
Right.
actual Buster Keaton.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We're in this day and age now when we are celebrating the stunt workers.
Yep.
Those behind the scenes. I mean, The Fall Guy, as a movie about stunt workers and a celebration of the stunt workers.
Yeah.
And even the North Carolina Film Critics in the past few years, we've been recognizing in our year-end awards the stunt teams that put it together, because there's so many incredible stunts that are secondary for a lot of people. They're like, just expect it. Oh, yeah, that happens. But we want to celebrate it. And when you think back to silent film, silent cinema, early years with Keaton, with Chaplin, with some of those others, that physical humor, that comedy that we saw, it was, they fell down. I mean, they put themselves in harm's way. And some of the stunts, that especially when I look at some of Keaton's amazing stunt work, it's just mind blowing. It really is mind blowing. You talk about the house, but there's a scene where he's on a train as well, and there's some interesting things going on there.
Yeah,
you're like,
the general,
how did they do that? The general, how did they do that? And I think for anyone who loves stunt work, that's another reason to go back and look at some of these silent films, especially the ones that are the action comedies, because you're going to really get a chance to explore a whole lot for sure.
I mean, it's no secret, it's no accident that John Wick 3 has the general projected against a building while Keanu Reeves is walking through this. It's because Chad Stahelski, the director who came from stunt work, acknowledges this all comes from Buster Keaton. And so, yeah.
I love that. Let's get one more before we go to the break. What else have you got?
So another one that I want to talk about is kind of an introduction, and really the thing that in a way inspired this list is the movie It from 1927. Not to be confused with the Stephen King movie. It stars Clara Bow, which I didn't know this until my editor came to me, because I am not a Taylor Swift fan, but apparently Taylor Swift wrote a song about Clara Bow. So she's kind of, people are asking questions about her. And if you're interested, you need to check out It from 1927, which is, on the one hand, it's an odd movie. It's an adaptation of not a story, but rather like a nonfiction article by Eleanor Glynn, who was kind of the society person, that talks about the it factor, the unexplainable attraction that some people have, which sounds like a weird source for the story, but what plays out is kind of this Cinderella story in which Clara Bow plays a woman on hard times who attracts the attention of a rich suitor, and it has that sort of fairy tale princess quality that it always resonates. But what stands out here is just how effortless Clara Bow plays this character. She is so funny and confident in the way that she moves her body and moves her head. I mean, that's some of the things that you get out of silent cinemas. You have to pay attention to posture and facial expressions, and the lightness that she gives this character. It's got a quality of, to skip ahead a little bit of, oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name now, so I can't even finish this. Oh gosh, the very confident Mae West. Great Scott! It has an element of Mae West sort of confidence and her own attraction, but not quite as cocky. There's a playfulness to it that I think that's a great. If you're interested in romance, and especially in Taylor Swift, go throw It on. You're going to find it incredibly immediately accessible, and Bow is such a fine actress in that style that I think people will connect with it right away.
And if you want to have fun, just put on your favorite Taylor Swift soundtrack. Just put Taylor Swift on while you're watching it. And one of the things I love about this is the movie It, not the clown, crazy, creepy clown It. That It factor that we talked about. Mm-hmm. Here we are almost 100 years later. The film was 1927. Here we are, and almost 100 years later, and we're still using that term. Mm-hmm. The It factor, and that's amazing that has been able to have such longevity as well. Well, we are talking silent cinema right here on Meet Me at the Movies, and if you're wondering why we're in black and white, this episode, that's why. I should have given you that at the top of at the top of the show, that we are in black and white, paying homage to those silent films. And I did do a disclaimer so you didn't have to adjust your set. We'll make sure when we come back after the break, we remind you again. So we're going to take a quick intermission, coming back with Joe George to talk about silent cinema, this show inspired by an article that he wrote for the Wealth of Geeks. And that article was These Standout Silent Movies Defined Cinema's Earliest Years. So stick around. We'll be right back after this quick intermission.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hi, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, your host for Cleveland Connections, the show that explores what's happening at Cleveland Community College. Join us as we sit down with members of faculty and staff to discuss programs of study, upcoming events, and other exciting campus news. We'll have a new show for you each month on C19 TV, or you can stream us online at c19.tv. Tune in and connect with Cleveland Community College on Cleveland Connections.
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on c19.tv.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hello, welcome back to Meet Me at the Boobies. Noel T. Manning the second here, hanging out with Joe George. We are talking silent films, and yes, that's why we are in black and white if you are watching us on TV. And if you're listening to the radio version of this, I don't know that you can see us, but if we sound different, it's because we're in black and white. So just wanted to share that. We are talking silent cinema. This show inspired by an article Joe wrote for the Wealth of Geeks. And the article of These Standout Silent Movies Defined Cinema's Earliest Years. Before the break, we talked Chaplin, we talked Keaton, we talked Clara Bow. What else are we going to talk about, Joe, before the show wraps?
Well, we got to talk about a big name, and it's got a bit of an asterisk, but you can't get around it. We got to talk about The Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith, 1915. Birth of a Nation is the first blockbuster. It was the first movie to be screened inside of the White House. Others had been screened on the lawn, and it is, on the one hand, responsible for sort of elevating cinema into the art that we think it is today. Griffith was able to demand luxury theaters in certain cities and raise ticket prices, all in kind of the hopes of changing cinema from a sort of a lowbrow attraction to heightened narratives. And he was successful as far as that goes. That said, Birth of a Nation is incredibly, almost laughably racist. It is a full-on, unrepentant white supremacist epic. And I often teach this in classes, and my students will laugh because it is funny how hatefully racist it is. It is a movie about how the Klan are the good guys. We also need to keep in mind that Birth of a Nation inspired the Klan to reband. It basically had died out by 1915, and they saw this movie and reunited. There's no upside to that. That is horrible, full stop. It does show us the power of cinema and sort of the responsibility that we have, especially that this is more than attractions. This can have real world effects. And as much as I could wish we could just ignore Birth of a Nation, I don't enjoy watching it. And by this point, a lot of Griffith's claims about his innovations have been disproven. A lot of the things, such as close-up in the montage style that he used, that he claimed he invented, other people had done first, mostly overseas. So that doesn't hold anymore. But right. It was an incredibly influential and popular movie and needs to be mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then for those reasons that you mentioned from the technological achievement standpoint, and it did explore what the power of cinema could mean to those who watch it, and cinema still holds true with that today.
Absolutely.
The impact that cinema has is pretty substantial. All right, man. What else have we got to make sure we cover here on Meet Me at the Movies?
We'll move back into fun stuff now. I promise. So, kind of for me, the easiest things to jump into with silent cinema are slapstick comedy and horror. Horror, I'm a huge horror fan. Horror is such a technically precise genre and an inherently cinematic genre. And so I feel like a lot of people can latch onto horror movies in a way that they couldn't with, say, like a drama or even a romantic comedy. And I know a lot of people know and love Nosferatu. I am not as big a fan of that. I would recommend The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1920, directed by Robert Vine and written by Carl Mayer and Hans Janowitz. It's a strange story about I can never pronounce this word right. A somnambulist, a guy that hypnotizes people, and he hypnotizes this monster-looking figure called played by Conrad Veidt to kidnap a woman, and then there's a hero who takes her back. Plot-wise, very simple. What's striking about The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is that it's German expressionist. And it is all of those angles, all of those checkerboard layouts, the heightened masks. Usually, when you're thinking German expressionism, you're thinking Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which makes it immediately accessible even today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it is stylistically, you nailed it. There's something different about this that does make it stand apart during that time period. And still today, it is one that is still worth checking out. Yeah. And, it's phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal for all of those things you talked about, the angles, the textures that they were created for this. It's a different kind of film to engage for sure. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah. So another one that I want to throw out there that doesn't get talked about as much, and this is a late silent, is Underworld from 1927, Joseph von Sternberg movie. That is a very early noir movie. It's a crime film, as the title suggests, that deals with a drunkard played by Clive Brook who kind of falls in with a gangster called Bull Weed, played by George Bancroft, and kind of gets caught in a love triangle with Bull Weed's mole. Feathers McCoy is a wonderful name, played by Evelyn Brent. And
love the name. That sounds like that'd be a great band name, wouldn't it? Feathers
Feathers McCoy.
Feathers McCoy and the Crop Dusters, something like that.
The movie's got so many great names. It's, Buck Milligan is not the character from Ulysses, is one of the characters. Slippy Lewis. I mean, it's just, and again, this is 1927, so we're not even like to the heyday of Warner Brothers noir yet or anything like that, where you got lots of, and this is laying out all of that stuff. And Clive Brook is wonderful as Rolls Royce. Just the way that in his body language and even just his face, there's like a static shot of his face where you just see it kind of move as he goes out of being a drunkard and kind of becomes the suave player within the underworld. It's really well done. It is extremely exciting. Like, von Sternberg is kind of known for his more Tony pictures, his kind of highfalutin and giant 4-hour cuts and that sort of thing. This movie just moves, and it lays out the bones of action thrillers that still happen today. You can see bits of A Touch of Evil, the Wells movie, in its opening. You can see bits of Heat, the Michael Mann movie. You can see bits of Widows. I mean, all of these guys that make the great crime pictures, they're all going back to Underworld, and that makes it so easy to watch even today.
Underworld from 1927. Well, Joe, we've got time, it looks like, for at least one more. What's one more you want to make sure you cover in silent films that are essential viewing before we wrap up right here on Meet Me at the Movies?
So I think we gotta throw out at least one Keystone picture. Max Sennett's Keystone Pictures was the go-to place for comedy. It's the place that Chaplin got his start. Roscoe Arbuckle, or better known as Fatty Arbuckle, got his start. And most of the Keystone Pictures are shorts, 1 or 2 reelers that last, 10, 20 minutes or so. They made one feature that is worth watching called Tilly's Punctured Romance from 1914. Chaplin is in this as a cad, a con mad cad who is working alongside Mabel Normand, who was a tremendous female comedian and one of the most popular performers of her time. And it follows Marie Dressler playing this woman named Tilly, who is maybe not a joke we would do so much today, a larger woman who gets bamboozled by Chaplin's con man. And as unpleasant as that sounds, it does walk the right line of watching her best Chaplin and Norman in various ways. And it's just slapstick after slapstick. You will admire not just the pies in the face, which are always good. Pie in the face is always funny, but the almost Rube Goldberg-esque way that the movie sets up the things where you're like, I know this is going to end with a pie in the face or a kick in the butt, but I love the sequence of events that are going to get there.
Wow.
It's a total delight. Millie's Punctured Romance.
Awesome. Joe George, our guest right here on Meet Me at the Movies, talking silent cinema. If you want to check out the full list of standout silent movies that defined cinema's earliest years, you can find that on Wealth of Geeks. There's 20 films on that list, and the best way for people to find it, just Google it or go to your social handles. What would you recommend?
I mean, always go to my social handles. I'm a freelancer, so so you can find it at Wealth of Geeks, but you can find me everywhere Joe writes words.
All right, and so Joe, one final question before we wrap.
Yeah,
what in recent years? What do you think? What film stands out to you that owes the most to silent cinema?
Honestly, the John Wick series. I've already thrown that out there, especially the third one. Again, Chad Stahelski is very clear. He's copying from Keaton, and that pure cinema that happens so much in those movies is drawing directly from those forerunners.
Awesome. Joe George, thanks for joining us. And for our audience, appreciate you spending time with us, however you choose to do it. And we know you've got other things going on, and to be able to take 30 minutes and spend with us, I just want to say thank you always. Until next time. For Joe George and the entire Meet Me at the Movies cast and crew, I'm Noel T. Manning II, and that's a wrap.
Many films to view until we meet again. Next time we see you, we'll gladly fill you in. We'll tell about the happy and the sad ones. We'll talk about the good ones and the bad ones. Many films to view till we meet again.